Hello, I'm Justin Newman. This is Team Baldwin's CAPSUM simulation recap presentation. So we have our table of competence, still filling that out. All right, the executive summary for this presentation is it encompasses Team Baldwin's pursuit of a broad differentiation strategy, focusing on high quality products that align with consumer preferences in both low tech and high tech markets. With a focus on R&D for our three products, Baker, Brackus, and Botro. We aim to keep them within consumer preferences, balancing performance, size, and reliability, while also keeping the perceived age within range of consumer preferences. With aggressive sales and marketing, we were able to reach and maintain 100% customer awareness across multiple product segments. Motion strategies drove high customer accessibility of 86% in low tech and nearly 90% in high tech segments. Tactical approaches to stock issuance, long-term debt financing, and dividends led to financial stability early in the competition. Investments in TQM initiatives paid off significantly, reducing operations costs. Executive summary continued. Approaches to stock issuance, so that's a repeat. Operationally, the firm saw much success reaching sales. Our top sales was $137,311,000. And we maintained or achieved top market share through 4 out of the 6 rounds. The volume in sales and size of market share was unexpected and led to occasional stockouts, which in turn made us more creative with production and capacity. For our vision and mission, our vision is empowering innovation, inspiring excellence, and defining industry standards. Our mission is to provide premium products that set industry standards and meet diverse customer needs through focused innovation, design, excellence, and accessibility. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys again for successes and failures.
So I'm Anthony Campbell, and I'll be covering the overall business strategy. Our overall business strategy is to be a broad differentiator. To do this, we must separate ourselves from competition by providing something unique or different from competing companies, such as higher quality at a smaller size. Aggressively spending our promotion and sales budget, increasing our capacity to meet the rising demand for our products, issue stock and maximize use of long-term debt for funds, and establish a presence in both market segments. Emerging strategy. Throughout the simulation, we had no emerging strategies, but I wanted to draw attention to one thing that we did change that I see as significant, which is alternating our 2 low-tech products to always have one on the market, because this, we didn't really align with the ideal spot, but it was for a good cause, because we always wanted a product on the market and we were hitting age, and age was more important in the low-tech market than the ideal spot. So I just wanted to draw some attention to that, although it's not emergent. Our realized strategy remained being a broad differentiator because we continuously met the criteria required. However, we also fit in a broad cost leadership strategy because we targeted the high and low end of the low-tech market. For example, we had Baker as our expensive low-tech product, and then we had Batra as our dollar store product. So we had we pinched the market basically. So strategic goals. From round 1 to round 3, gain an overall market share of 20% minimum by strategically placing and designing products that target each market segment. Reach an overall market share of at least 22% in the low-tech market by the end of round 2 by positioning Baker in the segment and through our strategic pricing. By the end of round 3, reach an overall contribution margin of 30% by maximizing our sales to increase profitability. Reach 100% customer awareness for all our products by the end of round 4 by investing heavily in our promo budget. Generate at least $130 million worth of sales by the end of round 6 by designing our products to meet customer wants and needs in both market segments, and by investing in a promo budget to help increase customer awareness. From rounds 3 to 6, invest in TQM to help lower the cost of various operations, labor, and materials, as well as accelerating the process of the R&D cycle and increasing demand. From rounds 1 to 6, worked to reach and maintain a 90% customer accessibility in both market segments by aggressively investing in our sales budget. These are some examples of the strategic goals that we did throughout the whole simulation, looking at rounds individually and shorter time frames. As seen, we had goals set for rounds 1, 2, 3, and also the whole simulation as we have goals set from rounds 1 to round 6. The results of these goals, so we gained an overall market share of 23.27 by round 3. In the low-tech market segment, we reached an overall market share of 24%. By the end of round 3, we reached an overall contribution margin of 30.8%. We were only able to reach 100% customer awareness for 2 of our 3 products by the end of round 4. However, we reached it the following round for all of our products. By the end of round 6, we generated $137,311,904 in sales. We began investing in TQM in round 3, but went heavier in rounds 4, 5, and 6, allowing us to see some cost reductions. And lastly, we were able to reach at least 90% customer accessibility for all our products by round 6. And these are the results.
This section will be a key analysis of our functional strategies in our research and development area of our company. Starting off, we want to say our main strategy was aligning our products with customer buying criteria and basically fulfilling the wishes of customers. We focused on specific criteria based on their importance to customers, and we've detailed this in a few tables, which you will see right now. So here we have the criteria, what customers in the low-tech market want, and this is the low-tech market, by the way. I'm sorry, I'm not mentioning that. We have the most important aspects at the top and the least important aspects at the bottom. And over here are our 2 products of the low-tech market, Baker and Batra. And specifically, this is how they looked at the year 2023, essentially their most recent versions. As one can see, Baker is a lot more higher priced, coming close to the maximum expected price of customers being 35, while Batra was kept a lot lower, coming in at $26.99 in its price. Now, the reason for this is because we wanted Baker to be a more premium product. We wanted it to be expensive. We wanted to differentiate. So that's why we made it the way it is. While Batra, it was more of an experimental product, and we gave it a lower MTBF in price. The basic primary purpose of it was to aid our differentiation strategy, and we decided instead of making it a high-tech product from the get-go, we would keep it in the low-tech market the entire time, as the high-tech market was basically very crowded. We wanted to move into an area where not a lot of people were operating. So that's why we kept Batra positioned with the low-tech market pretty much through its entire life cycle. Now, on the high-tech market, we only had 1 product, Brachus. And following in the vein of Baker, it was positioned as a premium product, which is why its price, as seen on the table, is much higher, is on the higher end of the high-tech criteria, and it also has a much higher MTBF. So there we go. Now, every year, one thing that changed for each product was ideal spots. We have a table that outlines this perfectly, I believe. On the leftmost area of the table shows our products, their ideal position size compared to the ideal position in size expected by customers for that year in both low-tech and high-tech markets. So Baker, in its first year in 2025, was perfectly aligned with the ideal spots. And since Batra wasn't even conceived at that point and Brackus was still in production, nothing really happened there. They didn't have ideal spots yet. Come 2026, we kept Baker unaltered. Usually wouldn't be such a good idea if ideal spots were our primary focus, but the thing is, ideal spots were not our primary focus. With low-tech products, our focus was on age, and if one were to go back to our previous table and looking at the low-tech criteria, age was a more important factor to customers than ideal spots. So we left Baker unaltered, and it was in the ideal spots at the beginning of the year, since the numbers you're seeing here on the right are the ideal spots at the end of the year. So Baker started off the year in the ideal spots, and it did drift away. Still, we were able to make some good profits off of having Baker in that position from the beginning. Since it wasn't altered, it never went off the market. Brackus launched this round, and it was perfectly aligned with ideal spots. And since age wasn't a concern with high-tech products, we kept altering Brackus all throughout the years. Every year you will see that Brackus was perfectly aligned with the high-tech ideal spots. Now, moving on to 2027, we did alter Baker to hit the ideal spots as we felt that its age was close enough. And since age is decreased with every revision, we felt that it would not fall out too far if we revised it this round. This was also the launch point for Batra. We had it perfectly aligned from the get-go, and it did all right. Could have done better, but it's a new product. Can't expect everything to go well, I guess. 2028, we decided to leave Baker and Batra as is to allow them to age more. Practice was altered. This was probably not our best year, probably our worst year if one were to ask. But we held our ground. We basically replicated our results from round 2 with that little extra from Batra. Now, 2029, Baker was altered, but this is where we shifted our strategy a little bit, because we realized that the best way to hit both ideal spots and age, would be to forecast a little better. So we forecasted Baker to be around ahead so that it would decrease in age, but come the next round, it would hit both the ideal age and ideal positions. We kept Batra unaltered this round, mainly due to a necessity to save on money. We just wanted to shift some more money to TQM for the most part. So it was decided that Batra would be left as is. Brackus was, of course, altered because we could, and it worked. 2023, Baker was left unchanged, and it benefited from that. This was probably the year where Baker made way much more than we ever could have thought. Like, success was just amazing. We had everything aligned: age, ideal spots, price. We think this was a very successful year. We revised Batra to fit more with the ideal spots so it wouldn't fall out of the low-tech market and we wouldn't lose our share. Brackus was altered and it still did well. So looking at how we measured our success, we based it off customer survey scores. So we could see how the success of each product changed over time. And since aligning products with customer buying criteria was our primary strategy with with R&D, this was the best way to know how R&D was doing. So looking at the long blue line, this depicts Baker's success. It steadily rose every year. The years where it flatlined were the years where we left it unaltered to basically allow it to age. And that's why that happened. Batra, lower down here, saw a lot of success in its initial years, but flatlined out due to the fact that we just didn't alter it that much. It was a bit expensive to alter it at earlier points, so that's one reason we decided not to alter it, as well as just allowing it to get better suited to the age criteria. And Brachus saw a lot of success kind of midway through, but flattened out. Still, we felt that it held its ground, it did well, and it stayed well. It was very reliable, one could say. And a secondary measure of success that we used was market share, how much percent of the market we possessed, because it gave us a good idea of how well we're standing up against competitors. So during 2025, the two bars you can see here is actually both Baker and this new one is actually low tech total, because we wanted to show both how each product was doing individually, and since Baker and Batra were in the same market, how their success was going combined. So at the start, we only had Baker out, then we launched Brachus, and with Brachus, as is shown, we started to make increases in the market on how much we had. We did fall a bit in 28, could have been better, but this was mostly due to competitor actions. They had priced their products a little differently, but we started making our way back up on Brachus. Baker stayed pretty successful for the most part. It did dip towards the latter end, but this is just mainly due to the market becoming a little more crowded over time, as sometimes that just happens. And looking at our share of the low-tech market overall in the green, it just rose steadily every year, with maybe a dip in 29. But that's not really much of a problem for us. So moving on.
Hi everyone, my name is Isabella Widener, and today I'm going to be talking through our marketing section of our final project. First, I'm going to look at our intended and emergent strategies. Our intended strategies for marketing were first to aggressively invest in both our sales and promotion budget. For pricing, our goal was to remain competitive, but not to put pricing decisions over meeting consumer preferences in other areas. And then we also chose to remain conservative with our forecasting to ensure that we didn't overestimate our future income that we would be bringing in. Now, our emergent strategies are a little more specific than this. And for our promotion budget, we attempted to reach 100% awareness within the first 2 rounds after a new product was introduced. And then our pricing also became a method of differentiation for our product Batra and was used to increase demand for other products on occasion. First, we're going to look at our promotion budgets and the associated awareness with our investments for each product. So first is Baker, and you can see it's nearly identical to our top competition. So our aggressive investment here didn't provide us any competitive advantage, but it allowed us to remain consistent and not have any disadvantage in this area. Then, as you can see, it's very similar with both Brachus and Batra as well. They we followed a very similar path to our top competitor. While there was a little variation in investment here and there, like we spent too much in round 4 for Brackus by just $100,000. And then we also spent, or the competitor spent too much in round 4 for Batra. So overall, we didn't gain any advantage in our promotion budgets, but we did meet the competitive level. Then looking at our sales budget, we can see there was a little variation, and we did follow our path of aggressive investment in every round except round 1. Round 2 was a little less because we only had one product in low tech at the time, and so we only wanted to invest $3 million, while in all the other rounds we chose to invest the most that was beneficial, which is $4 million. And as you can see, in between rounds 3 and 4, we passed our competition in overall customer accessibility. Now, in high tech, this was one of our greatest struggles in our marketing department because it took a minute for us to understand how investments transferred into different segments. So, for example, in round 3, we anticipated the full investment from Batra and Baker in the low tech to also go into high tech because they were in the rough cut for part of the year. But that didn't happen. And so it left us with much less investment than we planned on. So there was a little bit of a learning curve here, but eventually we got close to the competition, but that round 3 mistake really put us back. Now looking at our prices, as you can see, we did not change our product prices very often. We only lowered our prices for Baker and Brackus in round 5. And this was to both stoke investment and to adjust or to stoke demand for our products, and to we had room in our contribution margins, and it just increased the sales of these products. And then Batra, we increased Batra's price because our goal was to remain the lowest price product. And as you'll see in the next slide, we were able to maintain that status in round 5, but round 6, we lost that because of our price increase. And either way, our margins were within the range that we wanted them to be. Most of the time, they were above 30%, and that was our goal. And in fact, we surpassed that many times and were able to continually lower our costs as we went along through TQM and automation. So looking at our prices compared to the competition, in low tech, you can see Baker was right next to the most competitive and the average. And that was the goal. Baker wasn't supposed to be gaining any advantage through price. It was supposed to just be consistent while meeting other consumer preferences better than the competition. And Batra was meant to be our low price product and was trying to maintain the status of the lowest price product. And it only lost that status in round 6. And then Batra or Brackus was our high-tech product, and it remained right next to the competition as well, although it was higher than average. But high-tech doesn't prioritize price as much as its other consumer specifications. So looking at our forecast formula, this is something we developed in the practice rounds. And as you can see, it involves industry demand and the growth rate for that segment, and then a ratio of our customer survey score as compared to all the other points awarded. And this gives us an estimate of our mind share that we possess in the market and how much of the customers are aware of our product and consider it and what they think of it. And then we also make an adjustment for a worst case scenario where we sell less than we did in the prior year. And this ranged from 5 to 10%. Looking at our forecasting analysis, generally our sales forecast was less than the actual sales, which is what we want. We would rather our estimate be conservative and then sell more than we expect. However, we did experience stockouts in round 4 across all products, and round 6 across Baker and Brackus, and then Batra had a different issue with stockouts, but Baker and Brackus were primarily due to forecasting issues, and this will be discussed further in our production section. And another issue we had with our forecasting was our inventory leftover, and we had excess inventory in rounds 3 and 5 for Baker, and then round 5 for Brackus. And this is again due to our forecasting not being detailed enough. we needed to consider more factors when making our forecasting decisions. And you can also see in brackets in rounds 2 and 3, our sales forecasts exceeded actual sales, which again points to issues with forecasting. And looking at Batra, we stocked out the first 3 rounds it was released and then had excess inventory in round 6. And this was due to poor capacity buying decisions and then poor forecasting in round 6. So now looking at our actual market share, generally the goal would be our actual market share to be more than our potential market share, because that would mean we not only fulfilled our full market share, but actually took on some market share from other teams. And it's kind of concluded in that total market share at the bottom, which shows both the low and high tech impact. And as you can see, we only accomplished that in rounds 1 and 6, where we had more market share than our potential, which means we got to take on some of the market share of other teams. Rounds 2 through 5, we did not do that. And so that is also due to some forecasting issues. And that's all for me today. I'll pass it on to production.
So our intended versus emerging. The main objectives regarding broad cost leader strategy was to properly predict and manage the population schedule to avoid stockouts and excessive inventory, maintain a plant utilization ratio of 170 to 180%, properly invest in capacity to ensure our ability to meet demand for our products, moderately invest in automation to reduce our labor costs, but not so much as to overly increase our revision times. So our forecasting formulas that we used. So when preparing the production schedule, we would take the forecasted demand for marketing before the worst case adjustment, and then adjust this number by a best case percentage. This way, this was to make room for growth in our competitors' decisions, which may also allow us to sell more and avoid stockouts. The best case adjustment started at 15% for rounds 1 through 4, and then we increased it to 20% for rounds 5 through 6. This was because as we got into the later rounds, as you can see, what we were selling was like extremely increased. So we had to adjust our formula to give us more of a like leeway, like a buffer to be on the safe side, basically. Stockouts. So our primary goal was forecasting is avoiding stockouts. We've succeeded with this initially, but as the rounds got more complicated and we had access to more capital, forecasting became more complex and less accurate. We had 7 stockouts, with round 4 being our worst, which was a factor in increasing our best case adjustments for round 5 through 6. Additionally, our stockout with Batra from rounds 3 through 5 was due to capacity buying decisions, which will be discussed next. So as shown below, our first rounds 1 and 2, we didn't sell out, okay? But then we introduced Batra in round 3, and that stocked out because we didn't know how much capacity to buy based upon it being a new high-tech product on the market. But as you can see, round 4 is where things just went haywire and we stocked out of every product. And this was also because of a capacity issue. And then we got it under control for round 5, but Batra continued to stock out. And then round 6, Baker and Brackett stock out. And Baker's stock out was mainly because we didn't want to buy any more capacity because it was the last round of the simulation. But being that we revised the product ahead the way that it would be at the ideal spot for this round, like our product was the best product on the market, which led to extreme sales and as shown us stocking up. So capacity analysis. Our goal was to maintain a plant utilization ratio between 170 and 180%. And whenever that was exceeded, we purchased more capacity. By comparing the graphs, we see Baker's utilization ratio stays high, so its capacity is constantly increasing. Brackett's capacity stayed the same until its plant utilization approached 180%. Batra's capacity increased because its plant utilization remained high. And as you can see, everything is shown to support, well, everything is supported with these graphs to the right. So our buy and sell decisions, our major mistakes was purchasing too much capacity for brackets, which left us with a low plant utilization ratio, and under purchasing for Batra, which resulted in stockouts, as shown to the graph to the left. As you can see, we did not do much purchasing for brackets, and we're constantly trying to catch up to demand with Batra, while our Baker's purchases were gradual but consistent. So like we couldn't really get everything under control in terms of Batra and brackets, because it was like some rounds it would overperform, some rounds it would just like be in the middle. So it's like we didn't know what to expect, basically. So our automation analysis, we chose to invest moderately in automation as our as our focus earlier on was on capacity. This was a mistake as it led to our labor prices being.
Okay, our tenant versus emergent strategies for HR decisions. We did intend to differentiate ourselves by offering better client experiences and high quality products by acquiring and developing the skills of our employees. I think we were very effective in this up until the 6th round, where our major emergency strategy came in, and we decided to cut back on recruiting spend in round 6, and that went against our broad differentiating strategy in order to make our cash position more appealing. We'll get into it in the next slide, but it was a mistake. I feel like I tried to experiment, or even let me say I tried to fix something that wasn't broken. Being that it was the last round of the simulation, I figured that we acquired so much talent throughout rounds 2 through 5, where HR was active, to where round 6 we didn't need it, and the numbers provided to me on the simulation when we were making these decisions, we probably lost one employee extra. So it went from 18 separated employees to 19, and we acquired one less employee. I think it went from 31 to 30 or something like that. And the turnover rate didn't change much. All in all, it looked like saving money in the recruiting spend was a good idea until the round 6 results came out, and I had to take an L on that one. The overtime percentage, the turnover rate, everything went up. So let's dig into the numbers to see exactly what happened when and what went wrong when. I think we should start by looking at us throughout the round. So the percentage of the complement each round peaked in round 4 when we began to spend $5,000 for our recruiting spend, but we reached 100% complement every round except round 6, where I cut back on the recruiting spend. Shouldn't have done it. Had to take L on that. So that percentage right there contributed to that skyrocket of overtime percentage in round 6 that we see on the graph right next to it. So round 1 through 5, steady overtime percentage, like pretty much the same rate throughout rounds 1 through 5. Very little overtime percentage, if any, until round 6, where it just skyrockets to 9.4%, and that's just unacceptable. I made a mistake, and I'm owning up to it. Recruiting spend, as we can see, the trend line is in dots, and it's increasing, but to show that we did, throughout all the rounds, we did increase our recruiting spend throughout the rounds, but as we can see, we remained a constant 2,000 recruiting spend rounds 2 through 4, and round 5 is when we spent 5,000 in our recruiting fund, and really saw a big jump in productivity index. And round 6, when we dropped it to 1,000, our productivity index didn't drop any, but complement, overtime, turnover rate, it affected all of those things. Productivity index by round, we increased productivity index more than pretty much on a better pace than all our competitors. Like throughout every round, our productivity increased more than our competitors up until the 6th round, where we tied with Digby, I believe, for the most productivity index. So we were tied for first place. Yeah, we all start at 100%, and then our extensive training program was 80. We had an 70 and 80-hour training program up until the last round. That didn't change. And that, I think, just helped our employees just improve their efficiency and development within Baldwin, and that boosted our productivity index by round. Training hours by round, like I said, we allocated 70 training hours to our employees from round 2 to 4. And round 5, we made the jump to increase it to 80 training hours just to get a even bigger competitive advantage on our competition, which really did help. Our turnover rate dropped. Productivity increased a lot. Overtime was non-existent. Complement was on par, 100%. Yeah, until round 6, we again spent 80 hours, and that did soften the blow of the recruiting spend adjustment I made. But all in all, it just wasn't a good round 6 for HR investment. Turnover rate by round, we can see it drops every round. The biggest drop off being from round 1 to 2, but it steadily drops up until round 6, where again I decreased the recruiting spend, and it affected that. Just lost a lot more than I thought I would. It was projected to be around 6.4 in the simulation, and then when the results came out, it skyrocketed up to 7.3%, and that's just unacceptable, because that was our competitive edge on the competition, was retaining our employees who are doing such a good job. And yeah, I guess they felt it rubbed them the wrong way that I wasn't. I guess I should have recruited more. And then again, it was known that when you recruit high skilled employees, you're acquiring those, you're gonna have to separate from. You don't really need as much workers in the production process, since you're already a good employee could cover up 10 bad employees or average employees. You know what I'm saying? So I guess I should have accounted for that, but I thought the simulation was gonna do it for me with their prediction, but I guess not, because they blew me out the park with the actual results. We did very poorly in that aspect. To get a broader view of the whole competition, we spent the most in HR admin costs throughout all 6 rounds. We invested heavily into HR. We just saw it as a competitive advantage to really just develop and acquire the skills of our employees, like I said, and just improve efficiency within the workplace. We didn't have the biggest automation compared to our competitors, so having a great workforce was our way of combating that. The biggest HR admin cost that was round 4, when we increased the recruiting spend as well as the training hours, and TQM decisions played a role in decreasing that than what it should have been. But overall, we spent the most. Turnover rate throughout the rounds, we had the lowest turnover rates up until the last round, where it just skyrocketed a whole 0.6%, and really affected our overtime percentage and everything like that. Since we had less employees in the complement we needed, our employees have to work overtime, especially with the capacity that we were bringing out round 6. It wasn't the smartest idea by me. Just being harsh on myself. But throughout the rounds, we did a pretty good job. until that last round. Productivity index, we edged out all our competition on productivity index. We tied up with Digby in the last round again due to the recruiting spend. Didn't we would have kept it the same at 5,000. We would have blew them out the water. But yeah, productivity index was the highest. That all in all just helps with the production process and how efficient we're moving. So having the highest percentage on that provided us with a competitive edge on our competition, lowering the labor cost and all in all stuff like that.
So for the finance section, we will examine the results of the financial performance we had through 6 rounds and discuss what led to those results. We will also discuss key financial decisions from each round and the impact it had on our company. This includes displaying graphs that show the progress of different categories throughout the course of the simulation. So this is some of our biggest financing decisions we had throughout the course of the 6 rounds. For the first one, we issued long-term debt throughout majority of the rounds besides round 5. We were able to use long-term debt to ensure a safe cash position and finance investments in other departments. We issued stock through the first 4 rounds. We were able to use the stock to help finance investments and help our cash buffer. And then we increased our AR lag days the last 3 rounds, and this helped our company increase consumer demand. For our key decisions in round 1, due to our investment in new product development, our promotion and sales budget and capacity, we initially had a negative cash flow. So we financed this and our cash buffer primarily through issuing stock and long-term debt, but made up the difference with a small amount of short-term debt. While 5,000 is a relatively low cash buffer and presents some risk, our team determined that because we are spending more as we build up production, we are willing to accept the additional risk to see profits later. For round 2, this round we increased our cash buffer to 7,000 as we are producing and selling more and can afford to keep more cash in hand. We retired the short-term debt that we incurred in the prior round to avoid accruing more interest on the loan. We chose to maximize our long-term debt and then issue some stock to cover the remainder of the financing needed. This is because issuing long-term debt does not dilute our stock and does not impact our cash flow. For round 3, after our cash flow analysis, we had a negative balance and we wanted to maintain our cash buffer of 7,000. So we primarily financed these decisions through issuing bonds and a smaller portion through issuing stock. We also retired some of our current bonds and reissued them to improve our interest rate from 11.6% to 10.2%. In round 4, we wanted to maintain our cash buffer of 7,000 again, so we primarily financed these decisions through issuing more bonds and a smaller portion through issuing stock again. We retired some more of our current bonds and reissued them to improve our interest rates from 11.9% and 12.3% to 10.7%. In round 5, after our cash flow analysis, we had a large positive balance, so we increased our cash buffer to 10,000 and still had a little over 5,000 in excess cash. In addition, because of our excess cash, we decided to retire some of our stock and issue a dividend to improve our leverage and increase our stock price. In round 6, we did pretty much the same thing, except that we still kept the 10,000 buffer, but we still had a little over 11,000 in excess cash. Because of the excess cash, of course, we decided to retire some of our stock and issue a dividend to improve our leverage and increase our stock price. So this is our cash flow analysis through 6 rounds. We showed growth in most rounds, but we underperformed financially in rounds 3 and 5. In round 3, we didn't have enough cash flow and operations to cover the amount of investing we did, which led to a negative change in cash. In round 5, we didn't have nearly enough cash flow in the finance activities to cover the amount of investing we did, which happened to be our heaviest investing round. So we had our worst round financially of the simulation, but we responded in round 6 with our best round financially and did well overall. As you can see in the cash flow and net profit analysis, As the rounds went by, our net income started to make up a bigger portion of our overall cash position in the end. So this is our cost, sales, volume, profit analysis. As you can see in the graph, we started out making a little profit and showed growth through every round besides round 3 at a steady pace, which is good for a company. We had a great increase in sales through each round while having a slight increase in variable costs, which led to more profit. So this is our market share analysis. Outside of round 1, we led the competition in projected and actual market share in rounds 2 through 6. That means that we earned the highest percentage of sales throughout the whole simulation and was the most successful company in the market. This is our return ratio analysis. Besides rounds 3, we saw a steady increase in each round in every category. In round 3, we suffered a drawback as explained in the cash flow analysis. Although our cash flow was bad in round 5, we managed to still have an increase in each category in round 5 for our return ratio analysis. Overall, our return ratio analysis performed well throughout the simulation. This is our capital structure analysis. As shown in the first graph, we experienced a steady growth in debt, equity, and assets with assets having the biggest increase through 6 rounds, which is great for any company. We ended the simulation having nearly 100,000 in assets, which is more than double the amount of debt we ended with. In the second graph, that displays our leverage by round, so we had the most leverage in round 3 and our least leverage in round 5. Even though round 3 was one of our worst rounds overall, we still managed to have the most leverage than any other round. This is our balance scorecard analysis. From a financial perspective, we started off a little weak, only earning between 10 and 12 points out of 25. For the first 3 weeks of the simulation, we earned the majority of our points for this category under leverage, but we were weak when it came to profits, earning minimal points. For the second half of the simulation, we earned the majority of our points in stock price while improving our profits at the same, but slightly lowering our leverage. In the internal business process section, Baldwin did pretty good, earning no less than 17.7 points for all 6 rounds. We earned the majority of our points in inventory costs, plant utilization, and days of working capital. In the first 3 rounds, we were not doing too well in contribution, but during the last 3 rounds, we improved significantly, earning all 5 points. In the customer section, we did well, earning the majority of our points in SG&A expense and customer awareness. In round 1, we were a bit weak in the customer buying criteria section, earning 2.6 out of 5 points. For rounds 2, 3, and 4, we improved, earning at most 4.8 points, but then hit a bump for the last 2 rounds, earning 3.6 points at most. Baldwin improved at their customer accessibility, starting at 0 points, going up by at least 1.5 points each round and earning all 5 points in the 6th round. In round 1 of learning and growth, Baldwin did not do so well, earning only 3.4 points out of 7, and we did really well in rounds 2 through 6, either earning full 25 out of 25 points or losing no more than 1.9 points at the most. This is the comparison of our ROE, EPS, and stock price comparison. When comparing these 3 categories, it helps the company understand its financial performance and potential. And combining these factors gives the picture of the company's overall health and growth potential. These are the graphs showing that. As shown in the graphs, it had a steady pace of growth in each category besides round 3 for EPS and ROE, which is no surprise given the fact that the company suffered overall in that round. We had a great pace of growth in stock price in each round, with each increase being bigger than the previous round. Overall, these 3 graphs show that the company was in good health and successful through 6 rounds, and shows why we led our competition in market share. For ROA, profits, and leverage comparison, It helps us understand a company's financial efficiency, profitability, and risk. We also compare them to gain insight on the company's financial health and its ability to generate positive returns while managing risk. Here are the graphs representing each category, obviously. And as shown in the graphs, our leverage was a little inconsistent, but we still had good leverage overall compared to the other companies. In the ROA and profits graph, which complement each other in a way, both graphs display a steady growth in each round except for round 3, which is not surprising, but still outperformed almost every company overall. Thank you.
All right. Total quality management. Our strategy, the 4 intended strategies regarding TQM programs and initiatives throughout the first 6 years. Round 3, we want to significantly save on material and labor costs, which suits the company's goal of operating efficiently and differentiating itself. We also want to command premium pricing by increasing demand for our products. We in round 3, we didn't really expect the first round that TQM opened up. We didn't really expect the rest of the competition to be aggressive in TQM. They weren't as aggressive in the practice rounds. And since it was the first round, I thought we assumed everybody was gonna kind of test the water to TQM, see what worked best. But when we got the results, I think it was Chester or Digby. They went all in on recruiting. I mean, not recruiting, TQM strategy. I mean, they invested heavily. So, and their results as far as sales, market share, everything like that just skyrocketed due to it. And I think we weren't as aggressive as we should have been. But all in all, we did save on material cost, labor cost, and we did boost our demand a little bit. Round 4, after we seen the results of what our competition did by investing heavily, we went all in on TQM. We spent $750K, $7.5 million across the board to get every TQM strategy going. We just wanted to capture a large market share as we see what they did, and it worked. We had the largest market share up until round 3, 4, and in low tech with Baker, we did really well, sold a lot, and that went all the way up until round 6. To be honest, we ended up selling the most. We had the most in sales. Our contribution margin increased. Just all in all, a good round for us in round 4. Round 5, we realized that the impact of our TQM investments began to diminish. We aim to reduce R&D cycle time and take advantage of meeting consumer demands faster than the competition and reduce administrative costs to combat our aggressive HR decisions. So as you've seen in the previous HR slides, we spent the most in total HR cost, just following our beliefs of acquiring and developing the skills of our employees. And, it was a big hit, it costs a lot to be the boss, So we did that. We invested heavily in the lower administrative costs to combat that. And R&D cycle time, we didn't invest in it at all. The first round 3, the first round TQM came out. So, and we saw what it did, how the impact it made in round 4 when we did invest into it. Just reducing overall time, bring out the revised products faster to meet consumer demands, to capture that those extra sales over our competitors was a big deal for us, especially as broad differentiators. We really want to stand out from the competition, command premium pricing and whatnot by being on top of our game all across the board. So we did that, and we did that effectively. We'll go into it in the next couple of slides. I dig pretty deep into the R&D cycle time reductions. But in round 6, we emphasized increasing our contribution margin. To help with that, we maxed our cumulative investment in nearly every TQM category. This guarantees that we were utilizing almost all TQM to reduce costs, boost efficiency, and overall the ability to increase our contribution margin. Our contribution margin in round 6, I believe, was the biggest one we had. And this, I'm not going to say it was all due to TQM, because we had Isabella in marketing and production, and Binks and Justin doing their thing over there in R&D. So they played a big role in all that. I'm just saying that the results were amplified. We could amplify the results due to TQM, and that's what we aim to do. So we maxed out nearly every single one, except I believe it was vendor JIT wasn't, and GEMI TQEM. That wasn't maxed out. It was at 1,500 rather than 2,000. So going into our round 6, there we go. So they're going into our round 6, round 3 through 6, total quality management program, sustainability initiatives, how much we spent, throughout the rounds. Our functional strategy, we want to determine investments based on a worst case scenario, estimated percentages in the year's expense which programs to invest in. We fostered an eco-friendly environment, improving our distribution channels, improving quality of R&D, significantly boost our overall demand by 14.4%, and reduce our overall R&D cycle time by 40.01%. So big reductions in R&D cycle time, almost cutting it in half of what it should have been, is a big deal for us. I mean, just getting our products in the market as fast as possible to meet consumer demands, just going to increase our numbers, our sales, our contribution margin. It'll help us indirectly, well, directly, I should say. The cumulative impact we acquired was able to significantly decrease labor costs by 14%, material costs by 11.77%, and admin costs by 60%. Big reductions in admin costs. Like the amount we spend would have been through the roof, you know what I'm saying? So reducing our admin costs really saved us in the end with our cash position, our sales, everything, net income, everything. So in round 3, we spent $750 in CPI, quality initiative training, UNEP Green, and Six Sigma training. So we aim to reduce our material and labor costs, which was CPI systems and Six Sigma, as well as quality initiative. And the UNEP Green slightly boosted our demand for our products. And any boost in demand for broad differentiators is part of our strategy. So point blank, we want to have the most demand. We want to differentiate ourselves from the competition. And demand increase will help us do that. Round 4, after seeing the results of what our competition was doing, we went ahead and jump ship and invested heavily. I mean, we maxed out everything, and that boosted. That got us on par with the competition, really, because they were already ahead. And since they felt as if they invested heavily the first round, they didn't need to the second round. We took advantage of that, and we got on par with a lot of their percentages. And it boosted our sales. It boosted our sales by reducing our material and labor cost, just our overall cost. Demand increased, helped us a lot that round. That's when round 4 is when we really saw the potential of what TQM could be. I mean, like, practice rounds was nice, but this round 4 and the real simulation was a real eye opener for us. So round 5, we decided to follow up the same thing. We started seeing diminishing returns in some of the categories, like CPI systems and stuff. The effects weren't as let me say this, the ceiling was higher, but the floor remained the same. So I mean, if we had a floor of 12%, you know, we knew we were going to get 12% reduction no matter what. But the ceiling was increasing to 16%, 15, 16%. So I just thought that, you know, if it wasn't 100% gonna happen, we didn't need to spend the money in round 5. But we did invest in vendor JIT to reduce our labor costs. And I believe that's when we started playing around with days of accounts receivable and accounts payable. So having a just-in-time inventory, I thought that maybe investing into that, as well as reducing our accounts payable, we were able to receive products, supplies faster, you know, from our suppliers. We'll be able to receive everything from our suppliers faster. Don't know how accurate that is. It was something we were playing around with, so we decided to invest. And in all honesty, I believe it worked. I mean, we were revising products every round. Not every product, but we were revising products every round in a very quick fashion. We were able to get our products on the market a lot faster than the competition. Channel support systems, everything else, just to boost our our overall administrative, well, boost our administrative cost reductions, and our R&D cycle time was just a real big compliment to what we had planned. As you can see, we spent 4.75 million in that round. In round 6, we just aimed to max out almost everything to ensure that we were getting the last round. We want to ensure that we're getting the most possible out of TQM that we can, being that's the final round. So that's the approach we took for our TQM management. So our key analysis of TQM, as I said, round 5 provided the most significant results in our TQM initiatives. As we can see, the material cost almost 11%, material cost almost 14%. Oh, I'm sorry, I said that backwards. R&D cycle time 40%, administrative cost 60%, and the demand increase was 14%. Once we reached a cumulative investment of 1.5 million, which we did in round 5, each category returns on TQM impacts from additional investments did not seem worth the cost, so we didn't go forward with maxing out our investment that round in a few categories. So we just figured we save and improve on our cash position and invest elsewhere. Round 3, we had little impact. We didn't invest as heavily. As you see, 0% for R&D cycle time and administrative costs, close to 1% for demand increase. I mean, pretty much not acceptable for what broad differentiators plan to be. And since we're trying to have the best products on the market, 1.41 material cost reduction isn't going to cut it for us, So it was very, very smart for us to max out our investment round 4 and really get a boost in those amplifications. As you can see, it jumped from 1% to almost 10%, and that there is a substantial decrease in material costs, and it was worth the investment. And since that round, we've been continuously investing. Not as heavily, not maxing out, but we were continuing to invest. Labor cost, it boosted almost 10%. R&D cycle time a whole 27%. Administrative cost 43%, and demand increased a whole close to 10%, and jump from round 3 to round 4. Round 5, like I said, the return on investment for this started to diminish, except for administrative cost and R&D cycle time. Those had a big jump, almost 20% in each one. And demand increase jumped almost 5%, so that's a big increase for us. Material costs, labor costs, the floor changed. The floor changed, just a little bit, and that was able to help us a little bit. In round 6, material costs jumped 1%. We got labor costs to 14%. R&D cycle and administrative costs stayed the same, and demand increase jumped by 0.08%. So very minimal changes for the money that we spent, but we did it just to ensure that we were getting the best possible results that we could. So the impact of TQM initiatives, rounds 3 through 6, as we see, round 3, the effect on the demand increase, the effect that it had, we had a projected sales without TQM of 86 million, but with the cumulative impact, 86.3 million, I should say, and with the cumulative impact, it actually boosted our sales by a little over 500,000. So a little boost, but it's better than nothing, Definitely better than nothing. Material costs 1.41 cost reduction made our total sales 27.912 million, and our projected cost without that cumulative impact would have been 28 million. So again, helped us, and can't complain about it. It did what it was supposed to do. And labor cost 4.74 cumulative impact reduced our labor costs by a little over 2,000. Round 4, we can see that we added the administrative cost in there. We also have R&D cycle time reductions, but that'll be on the next slide because I couldn't fit it in the graph. But administrative costs 43%, big jump from 0%. We saved over 600,000 and close to 600,000 administrative cost reductions. So that was big for us. That was a big money saver for us. A 10.5% demand increase boosted our sales by 10 million, 10.5 million. So I mean, that was a big increase. So once we saw that, we knew, hey, demand increase, we need to do that. UNEP Green, we're gonna max that out next round. We're not even gonna waste time with it. So again, it's all about sales, contribution margin. We want to boost that as much as we can. Labor costs, a 13.2 reduction compared to the 4.74 last round. Saved us a little over 4,000, a little under 4,000 that round. Helped us, can't complain. Our labor costs were pretty low. And then the big jump from 1% to 9% in the material costs saved us a little over 3,000 in material cost reduction. As you can see, the cost of sales are in thousands. So when I say thousands, I really mean that. Round 5, TQM effectiveness. Again, a big jump in administrative cost reductions of almost 20%. We saved what, 1.9 million, 1.8 million? I'm sorry, 1.2 million. We saved 1.2 million in administrative costs. I'm sorry, I'll do the math in my head. The demand increase, we had a total sales of 110 million, close to 111 million, and our projected sales without the TQM cumulative impact would have been a little under 100 million. So I mean, that was our first round to get above. We cracked the 100 million mark. We were very proud of ourselves. That was very nice. As we can see, if we didn't have the TQM amplification effect, we wouldn't have touched it. So I mean, big for us, big news for us, great for us. Labor cost reductions, as we can see, our labor costs are taking effect already with a little slight increase of 13.82%. Total cost was 25,000, and projected without would have been close to 29,000. So we say close to 4,000 in labor costs. Material costs, we saved close to 4,000. So I mean, overall, good investments. Nice reductions, cost reductions, as well as sales increases for round 5. Round 6, last and final round, our demand increase boosted our sales by 20 million, almost $20 million in sales. So that's huge. We decided to boost our boost our demand increase as fast as we could, and it worked out for us. The 60% again in administrative costs, we saved close to $1 million in administrative costs. We saved a little over 4 million in labor cost, and close to 6 million in material costs. But I think it's important to note that we get into the R&D cycle time reductions, because I have to come up with a formula just to get it to make sense. So the formula I use to come up with the numbers, I took the current year R&D revision time. So I use, if a product came on May 18th, I would take the number of days from January 1st of that year to May 18th, which is around 138 days. And then I would divide it by 100% minus the new cumulative impact. You know what I'm saying? So if we had a cumulative impact of 27.25% that round of round 4, we would have the new R&D cycle time percentage would be 72.75, right? So we would divide 72.75 by the current year R&D revision time, and that gave me the projected R&D cycle time without TQM. And so for round 4, we revised Brockest in 138 days, and with the cumulative impact, we we discovered that without TQM, it would have took 190 days. So instead of coming out in May, it would have came out in July. So that saved us around 2 months. So that's nice. Real nice. Round 5, cumulative impact jumped to 40%, and R&D cycle time for Brockus that round was 109 days. It came out in April. I believe it was for April 20th, 2029, and our projected time without the TQM would have been 182 days. It would have came out in July, so that saved us over 3 months. Baker, 270 days. It got released in September. We made some pretty big changes to Baker. Without that TQM investment, it would have took us over a year. We wouldn't have seen the new revised Baker until the next year of 2030, the next round. So being able to have that cumulative impact allowed us to have a new product Baker actually come out within the current round and see the profits that came from that. And as you can see, round 5 was the first round where we reached, we cracked the 100 million sales mark. So that was big for us to have that revised product on the market faster. Round 6, again, 40%, same percentage as the round 5. Brockus, we revised in 109 days. So again, it came out April 20th. Projected time without the TQM was 182 days, saved us 3 months. Batra R&D cycle time was 302 days, so it came out in late October of 2030. And the projected R&D cycle time without the TQM would have been 503 days. So it came out in May of the next year. We wouldn't even seen Batra in round 6. It wouldn't have made a difference. So having that reduction in R&D cycle time, actually, we actually able to see our product hit the shelves and sell for us. And we absolutely killed it in sales. We had 137 million in sales in round 6. So, and I'm pretty sure having our revised product that our consumers wanted on the market that year helped us with that.
So this chart to the left shows a competitive market analysis in terms of market share by percent. So from rounds 1 to 6, we made the necessary adjustments required to make our products more appealing than competition. We also had more products than most companies in the low-tech market segment, which helped us gain more market share. On average, we controlled 22% of the market and gained upwards of 25% in round 6, allowing us to finish first. Throughout the rounds, we were always first or second in terms of market share. So our worst round in terms of market share was round 1, where we only had 17%, but that was us just starting out. And then as we began to take over the low-tech market with both our products, you can see that we began to get upwards of like 22% as stated, with our best round coming in round 6, where we controlled 25.41%, which was a fourth of the market share. So that meant that our competitors had to divide the remaining 75% between 5 teams. So this is the year-end stock price chart, and in terms of dollars. So from round 1 to 6, we made steady improvements to our stock price. We finished third overall in stock price with $62.42 behind Digby, who had $77.04, and Chester, who had $79.95. We had an overall growth of $50.31 compared to Digby, who had $64.42, and Chester, who had $71.04 from round 1 to round 6. Our increase was aided by having higher profits and issuing dividends later on. So as you can see, Chester separated himself about around round 3, as you can see with the gap. And us and Digby remained competitive for the following round, but Digby made that adjustment before us around round 5, and they were able to take off towards Chester, which is hence why they almost caught Chester. But we saw this and we kind of lagged behind a little bit, basically but we made the improvements, but it could have been significantly better had we addressed this area early on. So this chart is the average contribution margin percent. So our contribution margin saw an increase of 22.7% overall from round 1 to round 6. By round 3, teams making the correct adjustments began distinguishing themselves. As shown, the first rounds, everyone was about around the same thing, the first 2, and then round 3, Chester took off, everybody just basically branched off into directions. Despite this, we were able to finish round 6 with the third highest contribution margin with 44.7%. Chester had the highest with 56.5 and a growth of 39.8%, and Digby was second with 53.8 and a growth of 29.8. So our approach involved reducing our costs while maintaining high quality, which allowed us to continue to charge a higher price for our product, being to align with our strategy. But as shown, we finished third because Chester and Digby addressed this area and made the correct adjustments, basically faster and better than what we did. But third overall still wasn't bad. So our net profit by round. From round 1 to round 6, we maintained a positive net profit. This was done through investments into areas such as TQM to help reduce costs, having numerous products on the market allowing us to reach more consumers and meeting consumer buying criteria. This made our products more appealing, allowing us to finish first overall for round 6 with $23,015. And from round 1 to 6, we saw an overall growth of 21,878 compared to Chester, who had an overall growth of 22,859, making us second. As shown, we always had positive net profit, while teams such as Andrews began with negative, Chester began with negative, and even the CPU teams also began with negative. But as the simulation went on, you can see highlighted in purple, Chester's best round was round 5, which basically led to them getting more net profit than us throughout the simulation because of that round. Return on assets. So the chart as shown is the return on assets in terms of percent. From round 1 to round 6, our ROA was also continued to increase each round. Most teams, including us, began to separate ourselves around round 5, as shown in the chart where everyone remained somewhat competitive. Overall, we were able to finish third in round 6 for ROA with 24.4%. Through rounds 1 through 6, we saw an overall growth of 20.8% compared to Chester, who had an overall growth of 33.4%, and Digby, who had an overall growth of 21.2%. So our increase in ROA was benefited from us having higher profits in later rounds and from us selling some of our capacity we had for Baker in round 6. So return on sales in terms of percent. From round 1 to 6, our RS also continued to increase each round, and we really surged in the later rounds, such as rounds 5 and 6. This was done by investing heavily in TQM to help decrease our costs. We finished third for ROS in round 6 with 16.8% behind Chester, who had 21.8%, and Digby, who had 21.4%. From round 1 to round 6, we had overall growth of 11.6% compared to Chester, who had an overall growth of 22.5%, and Digby, who had an overall growth of 18.6%. So as shown, our ROS continued to increase each round, but we still weren't able to get up to where Chester and Digby were in terms of ROS, but as shown, we did make the necessary changes to improve in this area. Return on equity in terms of percent. So rounds 1 through round 6, our ROE also increased continuously. This continuous growth was supported by our high profits each round. We finished third with 40.1% ROE in round 6. Chester had 56.9%, and Digby finished with 47.9%, and those were the only teams to beat us in this area. We had an overall growth of 34.3% from rounds 1 to round 6 compared to Chester, who had an overall growth of 59.8%, and Digby, who had an overall growth of 40.2%. So as you can see, Chester invested in ROE very early on because they began the rounds negative while everyone else began positive. So they already had their approach in this area, allowing them to distinguish themselves in rounds such as 5 and 6, where the gaps were significant. But overall, we still finished third in this area because we made some improvements as well to try to remain competitive with the competing companies. So the main difference between us and the competing companies, we decided to introduce 2 low-tech products by round 3 while having 1 high-tech product, while other teams released 2 high-techs and 1 low-tech. This led to the high-tech market becoming saturated, leaving us to control most of the low-tech, which was shown in the market share analysis, where we controlled 25% of the market. Basically, that was including high-tech, but majority of our sales came from low-tech. Andrews decided to introduce another low-tech in round 5 and it hit the market in round 6, but it did not do so well. So it wasn't really competition for us. Also, we decided to alternate revisions of our 2 low-tech products. That way we would always have 1 product on the market. This allowed us to have products that stayed close to the ideal age, which seemed to be the biggest criteria for low-tech. So like as we went through our rounds, we realized that certain areas didn't really matter as much as age, as basically every product that sold the best had hit that ideal age of being around 3. Lastly, we adjusted our AR and AP lag days. This increased our demand for our product, which also led to some of our stockouts in the previous like rounds 4, 5, and 6. This played a factor in that because it increased our demand significantly.
So lessons learned with strategy decisions, successes, we having 2 low-tech products rather than 2 multiple high-tech products because the market was inundated with companies doing high-tech products, and we had 2 products in the low-tech market and we dominated that market segment. Alternating our low-tech products adjustments in R&D led to increased market share control. Failures, we should have invested more into automation. We should have invested more into capacity. We learned that by investing in automation earlier, our costs could have been reduced more, and by investing in capacity, we could have avoided stockouts and performed better in some rounds. For our R&D decisions, successful adjustment in performance and size to match market requirements, significant decrease in R&D cycle times due to investments in TQM. Challenge of some of the failures is there was challenges in aligning the products with market expectation, leading to misaligned launches. Lessons learned, the importance of timely revisions and updates and how that relates to perceived age, the impact of TQM reducing R&D cycle times. We wish we would have learned that a little bit earlier on. Marketing decisions, some of the successes, effective pricing and promotion strategies leading to top market shares multiple years. Achieved 100% awareness in targeted market segments through aggressive promotion. We did that early on and maintained it. Some of the failures of marketing, occasionally misestimated demand leading to either excess inventory or stockouts. I think 3 out of the 6 years we had one of those 2 happen in multiple products. Lessons learned, the highly important role of accurate demand forecasting and the necessity of flexible marketing strategies, as I was just speaking. Production decisions, some of the successes, adjustments in capacity planning allowed for meeting fluctuating demand. Failures, instances of overproduction and underproduction due to forecasting errors in both high and low tech segments across multiple years. Lessons learned, the balance between investment in capacity for growth and maintaining a healthy cash position. Misunderstanding the impact of high automation on labor costs. Finance decisions, successes, strategic use of debt and equity to fund operations while maintaining financial stability. Maintain positive cash flow through effective capital management. Failures, stretched financials from aggressive expansion, not allowing consideration for more automation investing. Lesson learned, the balance between investment for growth and maintaining healthy liquidity and the need for higher leverage ratios to please investors and score well on the balanced scorecard. Some of the HR department decision successes, investments in training, enhanced workforce efficiency and productivity. I think we had the highest productivity rate across the board, at least 5 out of 6 years, or 4 out of 6 years. Fluctuations, fluctuations in turnover rates indicating potential issues in job satisfaction, workload, or competitive compensation. I think we were competing with other companies and their HR policies. Lessons learned, continuous improvement in the employee development is critical for maintaining competitive edge. And then TQM decisions, successes. TQM initiatives led to drastic cost reductions across labor, materials, and administrative costs. Some of the failures, initial underutilization and lack of understanding TQM tools in the early rounds. That's for sure. We had to see another team and how their TQM decisions affected their outcomes, and then we decided to start pursuing that initiative. Some of the lessons learned: full utilization of TQM practices significantly enhances operational efficiency and product quality. Proper analysis of the competition allows for more thorough understanding of TQM investment impact. And then recommendations, we don't really know what to do with this section, so we're just kind of putting some of the things that we think we would have liked to know, or if a future team comes in place and they get to see this presentation, some of the things we think they should know that we thought were really important, or how we could do better. So do proper research and preparation for forecasting to avoid stockouts, excessive inventories, and ultimately losing out on market share. We could have dominated even further had we not stocked out multiple years. Invest more in automation at the beginning of the competition to experience the full benefit in the latter rounds. And then extensive R&D planning to align product size performance to the inversely affected ideal age. Basically, whenever you adjust product size and performance, it cuts the ideal age in half. And that's a problem in the low-tech market whenever you're trying to keep your product at that 3-year ideal age mark. It becomes difficult to keep it in that area while also keeping up with the ideal spots for size and performance. That concludes my portion. Thank you. Again, this is Team Baldwin. I am Justin Newman.